Hit record for wait for that. So thank you for coming, everyone. I'm excited for today's career development session. We have some great speakers. And just a little housekeeping is we do have CART captions. So if you want to utilize those, if you are unsure how to do that, there's a live transcript CC closed caption button at the bottom menu bar. You can click that and turn the captions on. We'll also have an ASL interpreter. So once the presentation starts, I'll spotlight the presenters and the ASL interpreter. So you'll be able to view that. And then as the presentation go on, feel free to put questions in the chat. There will be probably some time for Q&A where you can raise your hand and ask questions. So feel free to raise your hand if you want to speak out your question, or if you want me to ask your question for you, you can feel free to go ahead and just send the question privately to me. I'd be happy to ask your question for you. And besides that, we are ready to get started. So for our first half, we have Megan Lang from World Institute on Disability. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Megan because I know she has a little bit of a bio that she'll give on herself. So take it away, Megan.
Thank you so much, Leslie. Hello, everyone. My name is Megan Lang, and I am the Accessibility and Universal Design Specialist at the World Institute on Disability, or WID, as I'll refer to it throughout this presentation. So WID's Deputy Director and lead of the Accessibility Department, Kat Zigmont, was unable to be here today. So I'm attending in her place to talk to you about the exciting work that we do at WID and how I became involved in this field. So first, some background on WID. The World Institute on Disability was established in 1983 as one of the first global disability rights organizations, founded and continually led by people with disabilities. At WID, we're dedicated to designing, building, and supporting whole community inclusion by removing barriers for people with disabilities. Just so you have an idea, our mission is to continuously advance the rights and opportunities of more than 1 billion people with disabilities worldwide, so that we may live in a world in which people with disabilities live freely and where access, inclusion, equity, and resilience are embedded throughout every community. WID's work is basically split into 3 branches, we'll call them. The first is Global Community Inclusion Services. The second is Emergency, Disaster, and Climate Resilience Services. And then there's the third, which is my team, Accessibility and Universal Design Solutions. We are the consulting arm of WID in that we're hired by clients, which consist of companies and organizations of all sizes, to provide a variety of services that help improve accessibility. So when partnering with clients, we may provide in-depth assessments and customized training, perform qualitative research through surveys, focus groups, and user experience or UX testing, or we may assist in planning and executing accessible events for our clients, or more than one of those at a time. So usually clients are interested in partnering with our team at WID for one or more of these 4 reasons. The accessibility has become a new priority for the company or organization. Perhaps the client is dealing with a complaint or a lawsuit related to inaccessibility. The client might be a competitor of other companies and organizations that have prioritized accessibility, and they'd like to stay competitive and relevant. Or the client might be in the early stages of developing a new service, system, piece of equipment, environment, digital asset, or other product, and they're concerned about usability and inclusion. Oftentimes it's more than one of those reasons. And so in our efforts to assess and train, perform research, and provide recommendations, we may work closely with different individuals and teams at the client's company. And those people can include engineers, product designers, UX teams, accessibility coordinators, executive staff, coders or web developers, project managers, and more. So over the years, we have been hired by a number of large corporate clients, and some of those clients have actually integrated WID into their operations. And so often our clients want to do accessible UX testing, but they haven't been trained on disability language and etiquette or educated on what accessible spaces, physical and virtual, look like, nor are they familiar with assistive technology, accommodations, digital accessibility basics, etc. So our clients may have 1,000 people doing UX testing, but they lack the skills or knowledge to do UX testing with people with disabilities. Very likely, they also don't have the large database of users with disabilities that we have built over time and continue to expand. At WID, we believe in and make it our priority to center the lived experiences of people with disabilities. And to that end, a significant part of my job is recruitment, and that is recruiting individuals with disabilities to participate in our research and then managing and maintaining the national database of research participants. A vital part of the work that I do is developing relationships with the participants, building trust, understanding what traits make for a good participant or tester, and keeping those participant details in mind as we meet with clients and learn about their needs, because you just never know who may be the ideal candidate for a particular study. So now I want to tell you a little bit about my background and what led me to this work. As a young adult, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do for a living. I knew I loved writing, reading, and editing, so I majored in English, but I still didn't have a clear direction or path.
For students on.
I didn't have a clear direction or path ahead of me.
I'm curious if they have like any directions back on how it could be easier.
If just a reminder, if everyone could make sure they're muted, just so we don't have any conflicting audio going. So I ended up falling into administrative work, as many folks do when they enter the workforce. I spent a number of years working as a paralegal for attorneys that practice civil rights, criminal defense, and family law. And it was during this time that I developed and strengthened my skills in communication, research, writing, and understanding social and economic disparities that often lead to injustice. I spent a lot of my time interviewing clients and learning about their lives and their case specifics. And as it turns out, I really enjoy listening to people and showing care and empathy to folks who've been disempowered, especially those who are multiply marginalized. I find it extremely worthwhile to help individuals overcome barriers to their personal well-being, safety, and equity. And a great deal of what I was doing in those roles was, in essence, translating our clients' narratives and relevant research into formal written reports. Now, they look different than the reports that I do now, but this skill would become extremely valuable down the road. I ultimately transitioned my career into the nonprofit world, working for an organization that helped victims of domestic violence and sexual assault. And there I continued to refine my interpersonal skills, again, working closely with individuals who had been disempowered and listening to them talk about their lived experiences. And I also began training others on gender-based violence prevention. Many of the survivors that we worked with were disabled. Having a disability means that you're at a significantly increased risk of experiencing intimate partner violence. I myself am part of this statistic as both a survivor and a person with multiple disabilities. Notably, survivors with disabilities often run into significantly more roadblocks when trying to access services like shelter, counseling, advocacy, affordable housing, and other vital resources. So there was a huge overlap here with the work that I would ultimately end up doing. And not only does disability status, as you may know, intersect with every other marginalized identity, income, race, gender, survivor status, among others, but people with disabilities are disproportionately represented in all of these other marginalized communities. And as you may also know, when someone's at the intersection of multiple marginalized identities, oppression becomes compounded and intensified. So I knew early on that in my career that I wanted to work for an organization whose mission and vision I supported and whose work was interesting and important to me. And for me, the combination of a global pandemic and a new physical disability meant that working remotely was my best option. And I am working remotely for WID. I started out working remotely from where I previously lived, which was Metro Detroit, and I'm now in Columbus, Ohio. But when I joined WID, I worked in a different capacity than I'm in now. I was managing WID's administrative needs, and as I had done for many other businesses in the past. But I knew by the time I started at WID that I was really interested in UX. I just didn't have the experience or education required by most employers. So I was looking for administrative work. Thankfully, about 5 months in, WID, Kat, more specifically, Kat Zygmunt, recognized that I was being underutilized and that my skill set lent itself quite well to accessibility research and testing. And they were looking for somebody to join the accessibility team. I had strong communication skills, the necessary technical proficiencies, and a deep familiarity with disability rights. I just needed to be trained on how to proctor and facilitate sessions and gain a better understanding of all of our processes. So I spent a lot of time shadowing my more experienced team members, reviewing research data, sitting in on client meetings, and attending usability sessions. And eventually I started doing. Unfortunately, it seems to be a rare and especially lucky thing to enjoy the work that you do, but I really, really enjoy my work. And I'll never stop learning or gaining new insight around accessibility solutions and universal design principles. I'm actually working on certification right now through the University of Michigan. But I am now at a point where I'm managing my own research studies and client relationships and training new staff as they join our team. And I'm proud to say that I've now facilitated dozens of virtual testing sessions, interviews, and focus groups. And I've traveled out of state several times to facilitate in-person user testing. And I've also developed trainings and presentations for our clients, as well as for internal WID staff. In the last year, our team has also been really busy growing. We've added multiple positions to our department, diversified our client base, increased our participant pool, and expanded the services that we provide to clients. This has helped WID grow, continue to grow as an organization, and has also meant that our small but mighty team continues to receive more and more opportunities to do awesome work. So I do want to talk a little bit about accessible UX as a career path. I am so incredibly passionate about the work that we do at WID, and I imagine most of you are passionate about accessibility as well. I'm here to tell you that if you're interested in doing this work with us or other organizations like us, you have a leg up on other candidates. The likelihood is that most people who have experience in accessibility don't have a UX background, or they might have a UX background but don't have experience in accessibility. And all this is to say, this career is about centering individuals with disabilities as experts in their experiences. You don't need necessarily to come to the table with extensive knowledge of what is and isn't accessible or how to fix it. Our disabled participants tell us, and we're simply relaying that feedback to folks who are in a position to make the necessary changes. The disability community has most of the answers. Our job is to listen, observe, and translate their answers and our observed behavior into a digestible format, which is often customized for the reader. So, the reports that we're writing, when we're writing them, we're really trying to mold them depending on who is reading that information and what they need to know and what they're able to do in their work. I'm at a point in this work where I hear the same feedback and observe the same patterns over and over. And because of the consistency in what we hear and observe, as far as accessibility is concerned, it doesn't take long to become a subject matter expert on best practices. But like I said, there's always learning. There's always more to learn and more to understand in this field. But asking the right questions, making people feel comfortable enough to open up, and listening to what they have to say, these are the ways that we learn what accessibility really looks like. So you too have the capability to grow into this work if it's something you're interested in. And through this work, you can develop a deep understanding of what people with different types of disabilities need and expect from both physical and digital environments. And you'll learn that in both of these environments, physical and digital, it's not just about compliance, because even when compliance is prioritized and present, users often find environments or websites unfriendly, inaccessible, or just plain unusable. So our goal in this work is to find all of the pain points and encourage our clients to address them so that their service, system, piece of equipment, environment, digital asset, or other product is exceptional and not just accessible. So as far as outcomes of this work, we may not ever know the results of some of the work that we do, but sometimes clients follow up with us on the progress that they've made. Sometimes they want to retest something that they've tested with us previously and see if it's improved and find out what the pain points still are. Sometimes we might read about the product improvements in the news, which is always really exciting. Or maybe we'll see an improved version of something we've worked on while we're out in the world. And sometimes we hear that a project we've worked on has had its funding pulled. It's an uphill battle for everyone working in accessibility and disability rights. But the exciting part is that the possibilities of what we can accomplish in this field are really limitless. So for example, our work at WID has opened up the door for people with disabilities to apply for and be hired for jobs that were never an option until we worked with that company to make the job responsibilities and duties and environment accessible and help them shift their focus to disability inclusion in their hiring practices. Our work has meant that people with disabilities can now purchase and use products like mobile phones that were supposed to be designed for everyone, but were previously only usable by some. Our work has allowed people with disabilities to access and navigate websites containing vital information, like from the government, community service organizations, and local municipalities, to name a few, that they weren't able to access or navigate before. Our work has also improved the access to and quality of customer service for people with disabilities by a major global retailer that hadn't ever asked or heard about the negative experiences that their disabled customers were having. And those are all real life examples of things that I've personally worked on and that our team has worked really hard on. And as you can imagine, it's extremely gratifying when we see businesses make improvements in accessibility due to the work that we've done with them. However, my team and I really find the research process itself gratifying. We're often asking questions that no one has asked before, listening to important stories and anecdotes that no one has really taken the time to hear, and discovering implementable solutions to long-standing problems, some of which are so small and easy to fix, but no one has taken the time to, detect them and fix them. And although we may repeat ourselves often, we get to spend our time talking to others about the importance of accessibility and disability inclusion and show them how much of a difference they can make in the world just by making these things a priority in their work. So I really appreciate you having me here today, and I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has about the work that we do, about me, etc. So I'll kind of open the floor up for questions. I do see a question is in the chat. Is Megan on LinkedIn? I'm not actually on LinkedIn. I never got around to making a LinkedIn, although I have been told by people that I should be on there. But if you want to connect with me, you can email me at Megan, which is MEGAN, at wid.org, and that's WID.org. Also, I really encourage everyone to visit our website, which is WID.org. We have all of the information that about what we do, opportunities to get involved on there as well. So I see a question, what are the three branches? So the three branches really are kind of departments, are Global Community Inclusion Services. And so they do work with disability benefits and housing, and helping train community providers on helping their clients access their benefits and housing information in different states, using what's called DB 101 or HB 101. It's a website and service. So they're doing different work than we're doing. And then the other branch is emergency disaster and climate resilience services. And so they do a lot of work around emergency preparedness, disaster relief, specifically all related to folks with disabilities. And so they're constantly stepping in times of emergency and disaster in places all over the world, to make sure that organizations that help people with disabilities are connected to financial resources, to people that can help them with what they need, and also doing a lot of training, and working with companies on making sure that they're prepared, in case of, or municipalities, to make sure they're prepared in case of some kind of disaster or emergency, and that people with disabilities are not forgotten in that process. And then there's accessibility, which is our field. Says, does WID partner with the Fable org to work with testers who are disabled? That's a question in the chat. I don't believe so. I don't know if I'm familiar, but we certainly would love to discuss any kind of potential partnership, to find more testers and participants to work with us. So definitely feel free to reach out to me about any potential partnerships or opportunities. And of course, if anyone here has disabilities and is interested in being a user tester or participant, it is we pay very well. And we're always looking for folks with a variety of disabilities to do virtual testing and also in person, depending on the client and whether it's an in-person type of testing or a virtual focus group or something. So, and of course, yeah, anybody who's interested, we're also always looking for people and trying to expand our database. Does anyone have any other questions?
All right, it doesn't look like there's any other questions, but thank you so much, Megan.
Thank you.
And again, Megan did give out her email, so feel free to reach out to Megan, and that will be included in the notes that we send out as well. So if you do think of any questions, definitely reach out to Megan. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure being here.
Yes, thank you. All right, we're now gonna shift gears for a minute. So hang on, let me get the next team spotlighted. So we now have a few presenters from American Foundation for the Blind. So hold on one second. All right. Well, for our next session, like I said, we have American Foundation for the Blind, and I will turn it over to you, Kristen.
Thank you, Leslie. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here with you today. We're very excited to share with you some of the opportunities that come through our program, the AFB Talent Lab. Before we get going into some of the details about that opportunity, I want to give you a little bit of background about how we fit into this conversation, what role we've served, and how we might help you enter in some of these opportunities that you've been hearing about for the past couple of weeks, that you're going to continue to learn about, that you just heard about, and to help how we want to help you prepare for that. So like Leslie said, for AFB, that's the American Foundation for the Blind, we are a nonprofit. Our group historically has served the role as accessibility consultants historically. But what we found was happening was that as we were having these client engagements, we always come in at the end of a process, right? So quite frequently, we would work with companies, organizations that when they had finished developing their product and it was either getting ready to release or in many cases already released, that they were like, oh, we need to make sure it's accessible. And so we were working with folks at the end. But we all know, and companies know too, that's never the best practice. You don't want to be thinking about accessibility at the end. You want to be thinking about it at the beginning and the middle and at the end, and as the cycle continues. But what we were hearing from the people we were working with was that it was so hard for them to find folks who knew about accessibility, who knew how to do it well, so that way they could be a part of all of that process and they could be doing the right thing from the start. Because everybody wants to do the right thing. Nobody wants to make their product inaccessible, but most people just don't know how to do it. So what we as a group decided we wanted to focus on, instead of just working with clients, is we wanted to change our model to be about teaching folks who are interested in accessibility how to do it. So our goal is to help develop talent that is skilled in accessibility best practices in order to make it for companies to build products that are born inclusive. And that's where you guys come in. You guys are going to be that future talent that is just so desperately needed. So to tell you a little bit more about the activities that we do, I'm going to pass it over to two very important people I have here with me. I have Darren, who is one of the mentors in our program. So you can hear a little bit from him. And he's been an accessibility specialist for many years. He has been in this game for a long time, has seen the history of it and develop. And so he'll be able to tell you a bit about that history. And then I also have Hannah here with me. Hannah is our internship ambassador, and she works very closely with our participants to help provide them the support they need as they're working on their accessibility journey. So I'm going to turn it over to Darren, who's going to help us get started a little bit about the history of how things have been developing in terms of digital inclusion and the kind of opportunities that it really does represent for you guys. Darren?
Thank you, Kristen. Like Kristen said, I am an accessibility specialist, and I've been doing this for over 25 years now. And I've been very lucky over my career. I've been able to work with hundreds of companies all around the world to help make more inclusive products. If you've ever used the really powerful voiceover screen reader that blind people like me use on Apple's iOS devices, I was lucky enough to work with them on that and do some testing. And I was actually the first person ever to use it. So that's a pretty cool thing. I get to talk about my career. Let's talk about the background a little bit of this Talent Lab project that we have at AFB and why we built it. First thing, 1 in 4 adults in the US have some sort of disability. That's a huge number. A bigger one is over 1 billion people across the globe have a disability. And that's a huge market that we can't afford to miss. We have to, it'd be silly to neglect that market. And in today's world, the digital world, it's how we participate. It's how we work, how we play, how we learn. Everybody does that. And unfortunately, accessibility for people with disabilities in this digital world is often an afterthought, like Kristen was saying. And for people like me who are blind, we have about half the labor force participation rate as our sighted peers. And that's really due in large part, there's many factors, but in large part to inaccessible apps, websites, platforms, learning platforms, working platforms that we all use. There's a lot of work to still do to make that I can do all that independently. In this transition we've had over the last few decades into the digital world, it's a tremendous opportunity for people like me to overcome the barriers that were inherent in the old paper and pencil world, right? That wasn't too useful for me as a blind guy. But we're really not there yet. We still build artificial barriers into the digital world that Kristen and Megan earlier spoke about, and we want to change that. We really need more young people like you to gain the knowledge and skills to build more accessible and more inclusive products that we all can use. And one thing, it's one of the reasons we started Teach Access back in the day, is this is not well taught in colleges and universities. In industry, we have great need, not only to be able to, we want to build accessible and inclusive products, but there's laws in the US and internationally that require us to do it. And if we don't, you can pay some serious fines, right? So again, there is a lot of great need. So let's talk about this opportunity this provides. Tons of companies all around the world have this need because it's not taught. They need people with the skills. And And that, again, that provides a huge opportunity for you as you're going out into the work world. I got tons of stories about trying to hire engineers in my days at Yahoo and other companies, working with other companies in Silicon Valley, and at AFB, trying to hire people that, have advanced degrees but have never heard about accessibility. And then, okay, we hire them because they're really good anyway. We train them up on accessibility, and then they get poached by the company next door. That was very frustrating in my career. And actually I was ranting about that in my old lab at Yahoo. That was one of the things that got us going to start Teach Access a few years ago, 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 years ago, whatever that was. But again, I've worked in tech in my career, but every company needs this, every sector. Your professors, your healthcare providers, your bank, you name it, all sectors need this so we can all be independently included in today's world. And these skills, it gives you a step up when you're competing for a job. And we can equip you with those skills that Megan was talking about, those cool things that they do at WID. We can show you how to do that. So let me turn it over to Hannah, and she can tell you a little bit more about Talent Lab and what we do.
Thank you, Darren. Hello, everyone. My name is Hannah, and I am the internship ambassador here at the AFB Talent Lab program, as well as a computer science student. I have been with AFB for over a year now, and I got to learn all about the accessibility skills that I'm excited to share with you guys through our program, which is meant to be an educational experience that pairs students with assistive technology users. So Talent Lab has 2 parts, the internship and the apprenticeship. They are both paid opportunities, and they work together to make Talent Lab work through that pairing. I'll focus a little bit more on the student internships today, since I think that might align a little bit better with the interest of people here today. But I also wanted to talk about the apprenticeship opportunity in case that interests some of you. So our apprenticeship opportunity is focused on assistive technology users who want to and are ready to join the workforce full-time as a project or program managers who specialize in accessibility. So if that sounds interesting to you, feel free to reach out to us with any questions that you might have. But for now, as for our paid internship opportunities, we are looking for college students in the computer science field or a related field. Like I've mentioned before, our internship is meant to be primarily an educational experience. So with the help of our accessibility experts, we have developed interactive modules here at AFB to sort of build the foundational knowledge of the accessibility skills that you would need. And that theoretical knowledge is paired up with practical activities within the program as well. So our participants are paired up with our program mentors as well as our apprentices, so that you can learn from real assistive technology users. And what I mean by that is that instead of having sandbox kind of simulated practice, you get to see and learn from real people, which I find genuinely really valuable. That's actually mainly how I learned pre-Talent Lab before all the module concept existed. But I'm definitely glad that there's now that additional resource to help out with some of the more technical stuff, or maybe content that's a little bit more dense that's in there to help support the learning journey. But anyway, as the program develops and you get to learn more, you get to put all of those new skills to the test with a little bit of authentic practice with our client projects. So those are legitimate applications with the clients that work with us here at AFB, and you get to participate and help out with things that you would do actually out there in the real working world. So with this combination of the learning content and working with people who actually use assistive technology in their day-to-day life, as well as applying that knowledge with our real client projects, we worked really hard to make the skills that you would learn with us useful and valuable to the work environments, and to make sure that those skills were demonstrable.
All right. Thank you, Hannah. This is Darren again, and I want to talk a little bit about earning digital credentials. And this idea of credentialing is something we've been discussing in my world, in the disability world, for decades. And whether, it's actually been discussed in the last couple of these Teach Access presentations in this series. The idea of digital credentials, and do you need them? What are they? And some of them we talked about, I think the, what is it, the WAS or WAS, the Web Accessibility Specialist, and the CPAC, the CPACC, which I can't remember what that stands for, but anyway, these are very useful. They're based on learning and taking a test, and we certainly endorse that they're very useful to demonstrate that you've gained that general knowledge, right? But not necessarily the skills, the actual rubber hits the road. Can you do it? With Talent Lab, we want to help you to apply that knowledge and make it real. And with us, one thing that's really cool is you get to work with real client projects. We have the AFB consulting group that I was involved with 20 years ago, back when I was AFB, before I hit Silicon Valley. But really cool way to, not only work with clients to gain that experience, but it's a really cool networking thing also to get to work with all these different companies. And we work with companies from all around the world. And like I said, in every kind of sector of industry and education and anything you can think of. Okay, let me talk a little bit about our badges and what we're offering. Again, we offer digital badges you can use on your LinkedIn profile, on your resume, any way you want to. And it shows employers what you've done, like a portfolio that a designer or an artist might have. I can tell you lots of stories about interviewing recent grads that have never really built anything. They learned in school about it, but I'm like, really, you got to show me some things you've done. So this badge helps with that. So these badges will show employers that you can apply the skills that you've learned. And they certainly will catch our eye as people out there recruiting for engineers, designers, other people in this world. And employers truly need these skills, and these badges show you can do it, not just talk about it. So let me hand it back to Kristen now, and she can tell you a little bit more about how you can apply to the Talent Lab and take part in what we're doing.
Thanks, Darren. One other thing I'd like to add just about the badges is what we find quite frequently is that our clients, who are the employers that we're talking about, sometimes they know they need accessibility talent as well, or people skilled in it, but they also don't necessarily know how to talk about it themselves always. Sometimes they do, sometimes they're very knowledgeable about it, but a lot of the times they're new in their knowledge and they're trying to emerge with it as well. And so that's something else that we really want to help folks out with, is learning how to talk about it, learning when we say someone has accessibility skills or knowledge, what does that even mean? And so that's something else that our badges, we've tried very hard to do. So that way it not only shows what our participants can do, it also helps them talk about it in a hiring scenario. And it helps those recruiters, those employers, the people who know that they need to have the conversations. It helps them talk a little bit about it too. So one other thing that I did want to clarify, because sometimes I know it can be tricky. We've said we're with the American Foundation for the Blind. For our particular group, we are cross disability, all usability. So we never want that B to get in the way of helping everyone and supporting everyone. Digital inclusion needs to be inclusive of everyone. And that's the point. So I did want to make sure that we clarified that. So hopefully some of the things that we've described might be of interest to you if you wanted to, like Darren said, kind of put rubber to the road and get some practice with this. So that way you can be equipped and eligible for a lot of the jobs that you've already learned about and will learn about in the next couple of weeks. So hot off the presses, big news, our applications for our next internship and apprenticeship cohorts, which always start in the summer. Those applications are now open. They just opened this week, and they have, you've got some time if you are interested to learn more, to ask questions, and to get your application in. Applications will close on Friday, March 24th. So that time, it is a while. However, it will sneak up on you. So just be careful if you are interested. So you've got a few months. That group will start on June 5th. We have the specific dates at the beginning of the summer, hopefully after all the semesters have wrapped up. If you're thinking, well, what's the time commitment and so forth? For the internship, it's a little under full time during the summer. So I believe it's about like 25 hours a week, something like that. And the summer goes from June to about the end of August, whenever the next term starts getting started. That's your commitment when you start with our internship. But you do have the opportunity, if you want to continue with us, if you want to take some of that knowledge that we've definitely front loaded, those important skills we think are most important, we privilege those in the summertime. But if you want to continue with us, get some more of that hands-on experience, have some of those client projects that you can put on your resumes as well, you have the opportunity to stay with us and continue with us for up to 3 years or until you graduate, really, whichever one comes first. And that's something that we had most of our folks who were with us this summer, they did stay with us, which was fantastic because that just gives you more opportunities to deepen your knowledge and not just be able to say you know something, but to show it. So if you are interested in applying for the internship, the only requirements that there are is that you are either enrolled as a full-time college student or maybe some other higher education program. For example, like a boot camp, or maybe you're working on your master's, something like that. You do need to be studying computer science or some kind of related field, and that's just because our focus is on digital inclusion for our particular group. But we have folks studying to be UX designers, developers, the whole gamut. And then if you are an undergrad, we would prefer if you are a rising sophomore or a junior or a senior. If you are a senior who's going to graduate, and so you wouldn't technically be a student this summer, but you are interested in joining us, you would still be eligible. So don't let that discourage you if you're interested, but you're like, oh no, I missed my chance. You haven't yet. So feel free to please submit that application. And then for the application, the only thing you need to come up with is a letter of recommendation. So as you fill out, that's the only thing extra that you'll need from either a professor or an instructor or something equivalent that you think would be relevant to this opportunity. There are different qualifications if you are an apprenticeship candidate. So if that's something of interest to you, we can either answer any questions that you might have, or you can go to our website at www.afb.org/talent lab. You'll find all kinds of information there about both programs, as well as that's where you can find the applications to submit. And then I also have, we have an email address. If you have a specific question that you want to ask us, there's a form on the site. You're welcome to fill it out. But there's also an email address, inclusivefuture@afb.org. And you're welcome to send us any question that you might have there, in addition to any questions that Hannah, Darren, and I could answer for you right now. So we really appreciate your time.
I was gonna say, it did look like there's a few questions in the chat. I know one of them you had answered. Do you have any opportunities for graduating seniors? So you had answered that.
Yes.
The other one, do you guys have any opportunities or need for UX researchers?
So if you are looking to, you are welcome to participate in our program if you are looking to study UX research. That is something that we ourselves just directly on our team. We are kind of operating ourselves. We actually just hired some new positions in that front. So we would recommend you always keeping in check with us if you were interested in joining our team in that capacity. And you could email us directly if you're interested in that. I see a question. Can you give some examples of the projects interns get to work on? Yes, absolutely. So Hannah mentioned that there's module content. And so that is where you start. You start with learning some of the, the core basics and working on assignments and things such that you can put it to practice, and working with your mentors and these other apprentices, as we just said, to first learn how to use a screen reader and assistive technology if you don't already know. Some people come with those skills, which is fantastic. And so we focus for those folks on more what authentic usage is, so how to navigate beyond just the tab key and so forth. So that's something that we focus on very early, because we want to get over the fear of, how do I know if it's something accessible? Well, can you navigate it yourself? That's a quick and easy way to do it. Once we're there, what we do is we start working on primarily we focus first on web, but we do also go into mobile, and we go in mobile more depth as you continue for how to test. So we do it much more in sandbox environments to start with. So that way you can get some better variety. And then for the projects, when we have a client project, most of the time our standard engagements are accessibility testing on websites, on apps, and so forth. Sometimes it's actual devices themselves. And then we have one of those coming up, I believe, actually. And then there's also projects that we're really excited about because they represent a non-traditional project and when it comes to accessibility testing. So sometimes we are able to work with an organization at a more foundational level when they really want to create more of an accessibility journey for their company than just doing something that's an individual product based. So for example, if a company said, we really want to help create accessibility policies, we want to train our folks for how to do it, we want to start building in accessible practices and how to do that. And so those are projects where it's much more of an observation. We're not just going to send you in and, not be equipped to handle it. But those are really important conversations and processes to first observe, but then also to start putting together some deliverables, to start putting together, all right, how would I help somebody figure out how to do this? How would we help guide an organization to changing their structure? So sometimes, because that's what you want to do, right? If you are a designer yourself, or if you are an engineer and you have all of this, or a product manager, you want to make sure accessibility is baked in. So this kind of gives you the opportunity to say, how do people have those conversations? Because sometimes you have to change a lot of different processes. And it's not necessarily a standard engagement. So we do get a lot of those opportunities, and we actively pursue those as well. So that way it's not just testing. So hopefully that answered your question.
And this is Darren. I just want to add a little bit to that. As far as the consulting projects we work on, we've worked with nearly every large Silicon Valley company you can think of, as well as small companies, startups, educational companies, banks, you name it, all over the world, all kinds of different companies. Surprising, some of them we could mention to you. And like Kristen said, we work on projects, individual, but also trying to help companies change the culture internally to work on more digital products like that. And we've done things like we helped build the first talking glucose meter. We've had times with the Google car. I mean, all kinds of different things, which is a real nice opportunity to do a wide variety of projects.
I saw another question asking if there's a web page where we can look at those. The one pictured was the Assistive Technology Fundamental Skills badge. There's a lot of others. I'm going to drop a link in the chat that will lead you. We do it through Credly, so that way what it does is it allows us to have some metadata, and essentially what it'll let you do is when you earn one, you can put it directly on a LinkedIn profile, for example, or even on your resume, or in an email signature. It gives you instructions for how to put it pretty much anywhere you want. And there's a variety of badges that we have that are a progression that you can earn. These are the ones that you'll be able to see, the ones that our folks have been able to earn so far, because we release them gradually. So that should give you an idea a little bit about the types of activities that you will do, because it's skill-based. So that means that our interns and apprentices, when they earn one of these, they've had to prove and show that they've done these things in order to earn it. And like we said, you can attach evidence and so forth to kind of create a little mini portfolio. So I just dropped that link in the chat, but it's through Credly. And so if you search for Credly and AFB Talent Lab, you should be able to find it. And there's also links to it directly from our website as well.
Great. Are there any other questions that anyone has?
All right. Well, thank you guys so much. Thank you, Teach
Yeah.
Access, as well, for giving us the opportunity to share this with you.
right?
Yes,
Thanks.
thank you so much for being here. And let me just remove your spotlights real quick and then hold on. All right. All right. Well, thank you everyone for attending today. Again, we will send out notes and recording of the session shortly, as quick as we can get it out to you. I did just want to highlight our session 4, which will be next Friday, October 28th, at the same time, 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern time, which is 9 to 10 a.m. Pacific time. But next week we'll have Santina Croniser here from VMware, and she'll be talking about what it's like to work at VMware. She's an accessibility manager there, but she'll also just be providing some good general resume tips and tricks. So it'll be a really great session that you'll want to make sure and attend. So hope to see you all next week. Thanks.
Thanks a lot. It's Friday, everybody. Go have fun.
Yay. Happy Friday.
See you.